Good evening, everyone. You're listening to another episode of the Tall and Short of It podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back after a short time off. So good to see everyone.
Yeah, we had a week in between our last episodes. Mr. Aaron was on a beach vacation. Tell us a little about that, Aaron. How was it?
It was fun. It was a long week. Very fun week, but at the end I was pretty wiped. A lot of drinking, a lot of being out on the beach. At one point, well, not even at one point, I started off on a low at the beginning of the week. So, first night, we go out to this bar. It's my first time being out at a bar that's, like, open, like, fully open since COVID. Got a little too drunk and was having a good time.
Nice.
So, I blacked out. Irish goodbye, so I left without telling any of my friends. I was like, yo, I'll be right back, and I just left. Tried to walk home, which we hadn't gotten the Airbnb that we were staying at yet. We were staying at our friend's family's house.
Nice.
So I tried to walk home, which was about 2.5 miles.
Nice.
Made it about maybe 6 blocks. Came to in a stupor of drunkenness. And in front of me was a a side yard between two houses, and my brain was like, oh, I must just have to cut through here, and I'm back, because I didn't know where I was.
Sure.
So I wander through, go into where behind the houses and everything. I take a step or two, and I'm ankle deep in water.
Ooh.
And I was like, my shoes are already ruined. Couldn't be that bad. I'm gonna trek on forward.
As though... Right, okay. As though the house was just right on the other side of whatever creek you were in or whatever the fuck.
Yes. Very drunk.
Okay.
I take about 4 more steps, and I am all of a sudden shoulder deep in water.
What? Wait, so that means you had your phone and everything in your pockets? Brutal, dude. Okay, continue.
So I at that point turn around, get out. My buddy somehow calls me. My phone's still working. Thank you, Samsung. Calls me. He had we have a Find My Friends type app, so he could see where I was. He and a couple other people tracked us down, got us a ride back to the house, me in all this swamp water clothing.
Oh.
I sat in the shower with all my clothes on because I felt like I had mud all over me, so I was gross.
Right.
Undressed, went to bed. Left my phone in my pocket all night.
Nice. So it was just soaking up the you didn't get it into the rice, did you?
I did the next morning, and it works. I don't know how. I don't know why, but my phone worked. I was severely hungover. Good times. So my week started off poorly. So you can only go up from there.
Yeah, for real. Jeez almighty.
But yeah,
ankle deep to shoulder deep so fast.
Yeah, it was quick. I don't know where I was, even to no clue where I was, but it was, I think it might have been a retention type pond behind some homes, but there were marsh weeds and stuff around it, so.
Right.
Yeah.
God damn, man. That's a rough little evening there.
Yeah, it was good times. Very interesting way to start off the week. So.
And then I hope it got better from there, right?
It did. It was much better from there. I had a good time. Like I said, drank a lot, went out to some more bars, but a very fun week with some friends.
Oh yeah, that's what we like. So now let's just let's lead your beach trip just right into, give me your rose, thorn, and seed from for today's episode.
All right, so I guess my I gotta think on this for a minute. I guess my rose is being back home, kind of. Which it's like after a long week like that, I was like very happy to like be back in my own space and everything. Like I said, a lot of fun, but it was exhausting. So could kind of settle back in. Thorn is I am actually being transferred with my company to another property next week. I was finally feeling kind of comfortable with how, like, where I was, how everything was with the properties I was working at. So that's kind of a bummer to be moving off to the next spot, but that's part of my job, is like helping out where I'm needed. So it is what it is. And my seed is that I have been running and exercising a lot more recently. So
nice.
I am looking to continue getting into better shape. That feels pretty good.
Awesome. Very cool. I like those three. Now, what kind of running are you doing? Are you doing like just like long distance for stamina type?
Not super long distance. I mean, I'm not doing like sprints, but I am running like 2 to 3 miles. It's mostly to get in shape. Just see about getting back into running shape a little bit, cut a little bit of weight, that kind of thing. So
there you go. That's what's up, dude.
Definitely.
Nice.
So
shifting around, sorry.
Yeah. So how about you for yours for the episode?
So my rose for today, I saw my mom. She came in. She came down for a massage. So that's always nice to catch up and chit chat with her. She didn't really have much to talk about. Nothing new really going on for her. Gonna go pick up a flower order for her here shortly.
Nice.
My thorn here for today, and for pretty much like the past week and a half, I've been working on the Suzuka race in F1, and that course is kind of kicking my ass. I have not been able to get a good finish or even like a good just race in general. So Suzuka has been a thorn in my side.
All right.
And then as a seed, I would say so Modern Horizons 2 came out recently, and I was getting all excited, getting all of Twitter, and I had pre-ordered a box, like, you know, when it was announced. But obviously, like, over pre-release and then, like, over the first release week, like, I just get so excited. My box is in the mail. I haven't gotten it here yet. Everybody online's, like, posting pictures of what they got, blah, blah, blah. So, like, my FOMO was, like, going through the roof. And
Gotcha. But it's coming. It's on its way.
Well, it arrived on Monday, but what happened was after release, I got so caught up in a tizzy that on this past weekend, when I was going to pick up Sarah from the airport, she was down in Disney, I stopped in a card store, picked up a box, a little bit of, like, you know, FOMO, impulse control, not quite there. And so what I ended up doing, instead of cracking 60 packs worth of Modern Horizons and just, like, feeling like I had that third piece of chocolate cake, right? Instead of doing that, I just put the one that I ordered just up on the shelf, and I'll just save it for a rainy day. And so that is my seed, turning what could have been not like a bad decision, but I could definitely make better decisions with my money in my life. So I turned what could have been a less than optimal decision into a long-term investment. So that's my seed.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes, sir. Now, we had an exciting race this past Sunday. Well, we had a great weekend this past weekend. Sadly, me and Aaron were not together to watch the race, so there was no race companion. But it was a thriller nonetheless. What did you think about the race, Aaron?
It was really, really solid. It's definitely one of the best races I think we've had all season, in my opinion. It was a lot of fun during qualifying too. There was some shakeups there during the qualies, which was interesting with some people like Yuki crashing out, making things interesting. Leaving out Kimi Räikkönen and Lance Stroll down in the dregs initially, so not being able to complete a solid lap. But yeah, it was fun. The pit strategies were pretty exciting. I'm honestly pretty surprised that any of the that Mercedes did not react to both what Valtteri was saying about the tire wear and everything, as well as the fact that Red Bull pitted twice. I think that they kind of messed up there, but overall, with our friend Max Verstappen taking first place, very fun race.
With the with Valtteri's frustrations and Lewis made kind of inklings to that there had been conversations.
Hold on, I'm still here.
Gotcha. There had been conversations, or they alluded to conversations early in the weekend or earlier in the day that it could have been a two-stop race. They had data that might have suggested it. So it's interesting that they didn't take the call from the drivers that, what their driving info was telling them, as opposed to just going with what the data told them on the pit wall. So that's kind of interesting. Valtteri was obviously pretty upset throughout the race. The other, I think, big storyline that came out of the weekend, and we can hit all these points individually, but was McLaren, I felt like, was just tearing up the midfield, and as well as Gasly and Yuki for AlphaTauri. So I think those are some of like the big stories that came out of the weekend. The one question I have with Fernando Alonso, I'm not sure, like, will we see him level up throughout this season? He's obviously getting more and more comfortable in the car, but it seems that for an ex-championship winner, he seems to be just kind of like comfortable with medium. They're not medium tires, just like medium performance.
He is. I think that he is like getting pretty close to getting like the most out of that car. I don't think that the Alpine has enough to compete really with the Ferraris or the McLarens typically, like throughout the year. But he has been able to really perform solidly in that car, and I think he is going to probably, for the most part going forward, be out qualifying Ocon, outplacing Ocon. Like his starts, his familiarity with F1 racing and how he's able to like maneuver through the field is really impressive. Just like overall, I think the knowledge and the experience he brings is going to like probably get the most that they can out of that car. He'll probably stay in the points relatively often. I wouldn't expect him to be doing what Lando's doing out there, but
not yet.
Yeah, it's I definitely impressed by him. Yeah. Who else were you did you think had like either good or bad races, or like who else were you kind of keeping eyes on throughout?
It was other than like the top of the field, I was mainly just paying attention to Lando, Ricciardo, and Pierre Gasly. I think those were the three racers that were like making the most moves, and I think we're having like the best day. it seemed like the McLarens were racing really well together. Although, we heard on the team radios there were a little bit of bumps and pushes going on, which Lando wasn't too happy about. But I think that's just bound to happen with racers.
Yeah, definitely.
It was a good weekend for Red Bull for sure, and not just for Max, but also for Sergio as well, because they had him on a different tire strategy where they kept him out long on the hards and just had him. I don't know what it was, like play defense, play catch up, be like a second rocket on the field. I'm not sure what was, the main point of keeping him out, but it definitely gave Mercedes something to worry about and helped lock up that race. And now Red Bull did the same thing that Mercedes did in, I guess it was Barcelona, where Red Bull thought it was going to be a one-stopper. Lewis went in for the tires and was able to get the overtake and the victory.
Yeah, just
when
run
it
him
feels
down.
like it feels like this was a similar scenario for Max, where Mercedes didn't think it was going to be a two-stopper, but they went for it.
Yeah, and I was getting a little concerned at the end of the race. Like, it was, even with that, it was tight. Lewis raced really, really well out there on, like, just the one pit strategy to be able to hold Max off until the second to last lap. But then once he was there, he was just gone. He was like a second and a half ahead of Lewis in like no time.
It was quick.
So, but yeah, I mean, Red Bull had a great weekend, getting two guys on the podium. Awesome to see. And I think Checo is really showing that he can be that guy, which I'm happy about. I wasn't sure what to expect with his kind of never having won a race until last season, kind of having that, like, he's good, but is he that good kind of aura around him.
Right.
But yeah, definitely a solid weekend. I was a little surprised by the Ferraris, neither of them finishing out in the points. That kind of caught me off guard with how competitive they had been, and how far up McLaren was. I expected a little bit more of a back and forth fight a little bit on that.
What was interesting about the Ferraris was you heard the drivers talk about like being like back to reality after they got away from the street circuits.
Yeah.
On more, I guess they would like call them like more traditional race tracks. So yeah, that is kind of unfortunate, but it doesn't sound like, just from like a layman's perspective, it doesn't sound like it was unexpected from them. However, that is just kind of unfortunate because yeah, I don't think either of the Ferraris were in the points.
They were not. Sainz finished 11th and Leclerc finished 16th. And I think that's the weird thing about coming back to a racetrack after multiple races on street circuits. You're like, it's such a different style of racing. You're really working with a like completely different setup on your car. I think Red Bull was honestly not sure how they were going to come out and compete against Mercedes. I think Mercedes had shown that they can be strong on kind of standard circuits. So that was very interesting to kind of see that, and see how things shook out. Also, just I forget. Did you mention Danny Ricks a minute ago?
Yes, I did.
Very, very happy with him looking like way more comfortable. I was getting, he's the man, and so his performances so far this year have been a little lacking. So I was happy to see him up there looking good.
And it sounded like in the post-race interviews, it sounded like it was a little bit of like still trying to get comfortable in the car, and get what's the word? Get like acquainted with what seems like kind of McLaren race practices and what he needs to do in the car to get the most out of it. But yeah, him and Lando, it seems like, are really pushing each other. They ended back to back 5 and 6 on the grid, or at the end of the race, which is great to see, because as I know you talk about seeing. Seeing the two cars on the same team finishing closely together definitely bodes very well for the team in general, and for the rating of the engine and the chassis, right?
Yeah, and I think alongside with that, another thing that makes that good to see in this instance especially is the fact that Lando has been performing all fucking year. Man, his finishes: 4th place, 3rd place, 5th place, 8th place, 3rd place, 5th place, 5th place. Like, the man had one time this season that he was out of the top 5 and has just been putting it out there. And so with the fact that he's been performing so well, and Ricciardo was just right there with him this race, that looks really, really solid for Ricciardo as well.
Yeah, definitely. What's kind of interesting about the what was I gonna say? What was kind of interesting about the Lando Norris Ricciardo dynamic is, while they have like obvious chemistry, I don't think they're butting heads at all. I'm sure they'd be able to learn from each other. It does seem like they're really ready and willing to race each other on track and really like not give way to each other. So I think that's like really encouraging. On like kind of by that same token, looking at the race from Red Bull, we saw Max getting the slide by from Checo, where he pulled over and let Max go, and that really is just interesting. I'm not going to say like I love to see it or it's a good thing or yada yada, but it's just interesting where when a team sees like one car has more of an opportunity, it's like, hey, just go ahead, and then they're on board with that.
I think it's a little different this year too with Red Bull, because the fact that they are leading the title fight right now, and kind of they've put a little bit of a gap between them and Mercedes now. Those points are so key, and I know Christian Horner is just thinking about his opportunity to get that constructors title. So like, that is when I think the teamwork aspect comes into play. You really have to be able to manage that, and I think Checo knew that Max had better pace than him. Fresher tire, like no need to hold up your guy. Like, if you're like Ricciardo and Lando, where both of you are on pretty equal footing and everything, and either one of you could have it, like, absolutely fight. Like, I mean, not fight, but like race each other. Like, as long as you're not doing something stupid, then hell, whoever's quicker, go. Like, you'll find out.
Yeah, and that was what we heard on the team radio, where they told Daniel that he could race Lando, just don't mess up his tires.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like that's I think that's kind of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, very exciting race from the McLarens. Like I said, being up there 5 and 6, getting points. Yeah, we saw an interesting stat for Lando, where he's the only driver to get points in every race so far.
Yeah, no,
being that both Max and Lewis had that DNF.
I hope they are not caster cursing him, because they've talked about it multiple times now, and I'm just like, just don't say it. It's like when a pitcher's got a no-hitter going, like, you don't talk about it. Like, you don't mention the words no-hitter. Like, he's looked good. Just don't.
Well, At what time do people start getting like real nervous in the stands? Like, it's gone 6 innings, he's got the no-hitter building,
Probably like 5 or 6 innings. So you still got like 3 or 4 innings to go, and you just have
where
to
like
shut
everybody's
your mouth.
privy to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, this is about to be, or like the perfect game scenario, like, oh shit, this is about to be a perfect game. But you can't say it.
No, you can't say it.
Another race. Happy we didn't have any DNFs. All 20 racers finished, which is fun. Although I think more and more that's like a little bit less of a talking point, unless they went out in some ridiculous fashion. But yeah, just
That's
happy to see
fair,
everybody
but
finish.
no, absolutely. And I mean, we had a little bit of racing between the 2 Haas drivers too. A little bit of elbows out, some interesting racing. But
back of the field tire touching.
Hell yeah, gotta get the guys ready to actually race. It's wild to me though that Haas was like in the midfield like 3 years ago. It's hard to think of them having been up there.
Well, they clearly had like a higher caliber class of driver and probably a better car as well.
But even like last year and the year before with K-Mags and Grosjean, like they were still pretty much bottom of the table, like fighting with the Alfa Romeos and the Haas or in the Williams.
So, are there like regulations for like how long can the team just like float and flounder at the back without like making car upgrades and this and that? Like how long does the FIA let them back there?
Honestly, I don't know if there's like a specific kind of time. Like there's still part of the sport, but I feel like what most commonly has happened in the past is that someone who's willing to put more money in and sees the value in F1 like becoming a marketing kind of thing for their company will kind of swoop in and buy the team out and like typically keep a lot of the people but put more money in to be able to like make better parts and like have better design and things like that to compete more. I mean, we've seen it with in Formula One history with like Braun racing, that they came out just out of nowhere and won a championship for like they were in it for like 1 year. Then there's Lotus, which Grosjean had raced for previously to Haas, that was a super competitive team for a while, getting podiums and performing well. So I think that's the most common thing that will happen. I don't know if there's really a set like, oh, you've been down there for a while, like, sorry, you gotta go kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking of like some kind of like relegation race, or like how do you? Yeah, I'm not sure how they would do it, but it doesn't seem like it would be in the best interest of the FIA to have just like a floundering team in the back all the time. It
definitely doesn't, because obviously they aren't going to have many fans. They're not going to bring many more people to the sport. So, and I feel like oftentimes, like I said, they'll get bought out. There'll be some excitement, some intrigue and everything with the new team, kind of hypes them up a bit, and you kind of see what happens. But yeah, I feel like that's the most common solution. I would have to research if there's any teams that have ever been just like
booted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question though, because like.
Well, and like the other thing that there's not really a way to do relegation or anything like that, because like the teams in F2 like ART and Carlin and like those guys are not like companies, I think, that are big enough to have the financial stability for that is needed for F1. Like, great for F2, but it would be a lot more financially taxing to move up. So I think they're kind of content, like, being that middleman, still like getting some good drivers and still having making some money for the team. But I don't see, it's usually someone outside. Like, I could see someone like BMW or like a bigger, like a car company kind of like that coming in. Or, I mean, you could end up with another venture capitalist coming in. Racing Point was started after it was Force India, that was just owned by an Indian billionaire that liked racing, and he just threw money at it because he's like, I like this is fun. And then Force India had some questionable things go on.
I think there were some legal
I believe with things. I believe with the owner, possibly some tax issues and whatnot.
Oh, hell yeah.
I don't remember exactly. I watched like a video about it when I first got into F1.
Gotcha.
And so then they became Racing Point, and then Lawrence Stroll came in, and then Aston Martin. So it's
big bad villain, Lawrence Stroll.
Yeah. He honestly, it's so funny. I was rewatching a little bit of Drive to Survive, and he honestly just seems way more chill, like the second watch through. Like, after watching the first time, they kind of hyped him up as this villain, and then watching a second time, he seems like, I like racing, I like winning. Like, that's and that's all of them. He's just a man of few words. Like, you don't see him out there like Christian Horner, like chatting it up on the pit wall and like whatever. Toto's not super talkative either, but the fact that he's on the top so consistently, he's like, I don't have to say anything really.
Right. Well, also being at the top, like, you're just required in the like media things more.
Yeah.
So maybe there would be a friendlier sense of Lawrence Stroll if he was, if he had to be interviewed more.
Definitely. It's been F1's been has a really cool history. I need to dive into it more and kind of get a better idea of like some of these teams and how they've come up through and all. Like, that's Lawrence Stroll coming in and just like buying out a team is just, I don't know how commonly that happens.
I imagine over the course of F1's history, it happened. It's probably happened more than you would guess, but less than like a really large number.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But there is something to these like big money types just like following an expensive hobby. I think that's kind of interesting. The one thing, and I imagine, or it seems that the sport has like gone kind of away from this. Like, even as much as I've shit on Lance Stroll, like, he finished 10th in this race. Like, he clearly deserves to be there just as much as anybody else, if not more than some of the other drivers. So it is interesting when big money hobbies can produce a competitor whose chops are just as good, right? Like, the intent doesn't taint the win or the skill or how,
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think F1 is cool in that aspect that it's like, I mean, yes, you do have to be like physically gifted to be competitive in F1. But I would say that there is more ability to be a good F1 racer than like a great baseball player or a great football player, a great soccer player. Like, with those sports, a lot of it comes to like just your genetic build. And with F1, there are a lot of things regarding that aren't as important. It's like staying in shape. Like, you look at Pierre Gasly, you look at Lance Stroll, you look at George Russell. Those are, no offense to the guys, they don't, but those are not the bodies of mega athletes and like superstar athletes in most sports.
They're probably the bodies of like endurance runners. So yeah, it's not like high explosive like the fast muscle twitch. But yeah, I'm sure they're like, they could probably run forever.
Probably. I mean,
except Ocon with his little toothpick legs, dude.
But Alonso, I mean, you see, man gets out and bikes. So does Lewis. He likes to post pictures on the top of mountaintops with his bike and like keep grinding, rise and grind. I don't think he's ever said rise and grind, but.
No, I'm pretty sure his little tagline is "I still rise."
I think that's probably pretty close.
Yep. So even cornier than what you said.
Even cornier.
Yeah. But no, yes, just different levels of fitness, different level of just different backgrounds. But I think it is fun that. You don't want to see like nepotism, but if you can prove you deserve to be there, man, I'm all for it.
If there is nepotism, that is much more pressure for the person to not suck. Like, because then everyone's just like, there's never going to be a story about how well you're racing. It's always going to just be like, he's only here because of his dad.
Right.
Like, I think it adds another layer of, like, pressure from the outside. So the fact that, I mean, granted, like, we make fun of him a little bit here and there, but he has been racing pretty well this year. So
well, and he's cleaned up so much more than the memes. Like, he used to be Mazza Spin.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Flipping the car and shit, like that used to be him. Now he's got clean races. He's finishing 10th. So yeah, shout out to Aston Martin. I think watching him like develop as a driver has been actually kind of interesting. If there's anybody who's been listening since the beginning, I've had some harsh words in the past, but. I will be a little more thoughtful in the future because they're doing really well. And by the way, Seb Vettel was 9th, so the Aston Martins are finishing close together.
Yeah, Seb Vettel 9th. Seb Vettel is in the top 10 in the drivers' standings, which is pretty cool. After how tough of a start to the season and how tough of a year he had last year. Kind of cool to see him bouncing back, getting up in there a little bit. So yeah, Aston Martin has been looking a bit better. So it's good. It's good for the sport when teams are competing like that. I like it.
Well, yes,
it's fun to see things shake up. It got so boring just being like, another race. Who's gonna be second or third?
Right.
Lewis is gonna win. So, and speaking of Mercedes, Valtteri is still hanging down. He is 5th in the drivers right now. Lando is still above him, which is kind of wild to see. Like, not by a little bit. Lando's up 17 points on him.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what the plan is for him or why it constantly feels like he's getting the short end of the strategy. But Valtteri struggling up at the top of the field.
Yeah. He'll get, I mean, he kind of has it together. He's just, I don't know. I think he's a little crushed that he's not being able to compete with Lewis. I think it's hurt his spirit a little bit.
I would definitely agree, and hopefully we'll see. Hopefully we'll see him like rise out of that, and give the middle sector and the third sector of the championship just really gunning. because you hate to hear the low voice looking down. Well, blah blah blah. You kind of hate to see that from him, from a driver that's on a top team,
And the
and somebody
frustration
who
in the comms too.
exactly
That's brutal because like he wants to do well and he's just not. He's just not.
Well, and it's obvious like he had the info like to help the team do well. They just didn't want to consider it, or they did consider it and didn't deem it like a valid concern or an option. So yeah, it just seems like he's not getting the due.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll see how the season goes. I'm interested to see kind of later in the season how things are going with Red Bull, specifically just because of the fact that next year they're taking on the whole engine from Honda and everything.
Right.
I'm interested to like, I'll probably be reading up here and there on like any news that's going on with that, because that will be interesting going into next season. I know it's a long ways out, but it just popped into my mind. I was like, oh yeah, like that's happening, and it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of keep things going with how well they are doing now.
Right, with no drop off,
taking over the engine production and all. Like that's a
gotcha.
That's a hefty.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Hefty thing to take on. But
well, what'll happen is Max will win this championship by a landslide, and enough that the whole F1 community is like forgiving in the 2022 season when the when the Red Bull power unit just isn't doing quite that good. The 2021 season will have been so phenomenal for Max and Red Bull that like no one even really thinks about it. They're just like, oh, it's.
Or he'll just get picked up by Mercedes.
Yeah, and Mercedes has three cars.
Yep, exactly. Now, I mean, Mercedes, Toto has not confirmed what their lineup is for next year. He said he
Yeah, why would you?
Well, obviously, but he said he favors his guys, but all kind of options are open. And, hey, they clearly are willing to pay the money. They're paying Lewis the most by like $11 million or 11 million euros.
Right. I don't know, man.
That's always got to be a worry. I mean, ever since Danny Ricks jumped from Red Bull, it's kind of, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's tough to like get a sense of. Yeah, I just don't know enough about like power dynamics and who wants who, and I just don't know enough to even make like good speculation.
Yeah. I mean, I just expect that Mercedes wants the best drivers, and
right.
I mean, obviously Red Bull's not going to give Max up easy, but
no, because then they don't have a chance at all.
Yeah. Then they're just second place again.
It maybe not even second place. I could see without Max them not being a first place team.
Depends who the other driver they bring in is.
Right, they definitely have the car for it. I would imagine this season they have the car for it. Let's say they do well with the power unit transfer and they still have a good car next season.
Pierre Gasly, Sergio Perez.
I still think that's like a 4th, 5th place team.
It might
unfortunately.
It might be.
I just don't think. Max is a freak currently.
He is a force of nature. Also, just on a side note, before we're probably about to move on to the next thing, but did you see F1 Red Bull did one of their like stunt videos for the French Grand Prix where they have like a stunt driver driving an F1 car all over these like streets through Europe, and they had one of the Red Bull like biplanes like flying upside down over it and everything.
Oh, that's sick. I did not see that.
They periodically do these, and they'll have the car basically like start out driving from wherever the last race was, like the F1 car like going out on the roads and through wherever it is, and then like winding up crossing these like bridges and all this stuff into wherever the city is. I think they might have done one for Baku as well.
Oh wow.
But they're pretty cool. I'll link you the video afterwards.
Nice.
It's pretty cool.
That's sick. Okay,
They did
cool.
This one was the road trip from the Czech Republic to Slovakia. So
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah.
Damn, that's pretty neat, man.
Yeah, it's I enjoy seeing them whenever that happens. So it's a cool like short video to watch. It's like
Right.
a couple minutes usually or something like that.
Very cool. And then coming up this weekend, we have the Styrian Grand Prix, which is one of 2 home races for Red Bull.
Is that really already this weekend? I didn't realize that.
Yep. Yeah, they have, it's a triple
Oh.
header. So it was this past weekend, the Styrian Grand Prix, and then the Austrian Grand Prix.
Oh, that's why I got... No, you're right. That's why I got it. I was looking up the Austrian Grand Prix because I was like, oh, like Austria's next. And I was like, oh, that's like that's July, the 4th of July weekend.
We got one in between
Gotcha. Oh, that's fun. So
at the Red Bull Ring.
that will be cool to watch this weekend.
Yepers. Yeah, I think I think it'll be a good race. Hopefully we have home field advantage from Red Bull, and we can take a strong finish this past weekend and lead it into another strong finish here.
Yeah, I think they have. They've shown that they have a good car. It'll be interesting to see. I think there's supposed to be some rain forecast. Because it was weird. I don't know why I didn't pick up on the fact that there was a race this weekend, because I saw someone tweet about like rain forecasts for like the Grand Prix. I was like, that's
Right.
kind of far out to be like predicting weather.
I didn't know they had a 14-day forecast.
Yeah, so I was like kind of confused, but didn't pay enough attention to it to be like, I should look into that. I was just like, whatever.
There you go, man.
So yeah, 2 days and we're getting into practices.
Yeah, which is sweet. So we have we'll have some race content coming at you for the Styrian Grand Prix. But I think just to sum it up, we had Max 1, Lewis 2, Checo 3, and a sad Valtteri number 4 just off the podium. Great race from this past Sunday. I would say it was definitely a nail biter. It was. I think it's what we all come for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And little stretch of the lead for Max after a tough crash out in the last race. Red Bull extending the lead as well, which is kind of wild with Mercedes having won the last set. It's weird.
What a time to be alive, dude.
What a time to like F1 racing.
We're literally watching history being made.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Don't jinx
But
it.
yeah, the other fun we had over the weekend, as usual, the NaLCS. And to all the worldwide fans out there, I will say, as the season starts heating up on the run towards Worlds, I'm gonna start bringing in some international games and some international, at least standings, teams, players, things, champions to watch. I'm not saying I'm gonna be an LPL pro or anything, but I just want to, and this is mainly gonna be for myself, but I'll just share it with the listeners. I definitely want to try and learn a little bit more about the international regions before going into the Worlds tournament. So hopefully this podcast will be like a good place to explore some of that. For now, we're really just going to stick with the NaLCS. We have a good amount on our plates regardless. So we just want to give the best content possible. So we're just going to tend to stick to the regions that we know. But as we start gearing up and get closer to Worlds, expect to hear about some of the other regions, some of the other teams. So we're not totally green as a pod fam, as a group of like-minded listeners here and people. We don't want to be dumb going into Worlds, so we'll
want to know what's going on, know what to expect. Might not know the TCL teams, but at least major regions.
At least the major regions, which means we can probably just forget all about NaLCS. Yeah. Oh wait, what did you say? The top region? Okay, but we are going to try a different format for the LCS conversations. Me and Aaron were talking. We felt like we just kind of like wandered around and just ended up just like making these like general statements about players after, being inundated with, 15 games over the weekend. So what we're going to try and do today and on other episodes is to just pick one or two games from a day and just kind of hone in on them, and then maybe give some overview of other games that happened over the weekend, maybe just like standings and what to expect from the next week. But I think we want to go for depth over breadth, for a little bit of quality over quantity.
Definitely.
Now, having said that, for day one, what game did you pick?
Well, I think we talked a little bit before, so I think we had the same game for day one, which is the Cloud9 Evil Geniuses. Coming back from the beach and everything, did not get to watch as much. I tried to catch up on some games over the past couple days, but it was still pretty busy, so I didn't get through as much. I will do better over the next couple weeks. But that being said, I know that one of the big focuses that you had for the game between EG and Cloud9 was the team comps, and that was something that I definitely saw too. I don't know, the picks for Cloud9 this week, they just seemed like they were getting beat in draft a lot.
Yeah, well, I think.
Or maybe just behind meta, but I don't know.
It seems like it's a little bit of both. If I remember the pick ban correctly, I think they tried to get Senna Tom Kench in the way that they banned, and then EG took Senna, Vulcan, or Tom Kench wasn't banned, so then Cloud9 took it to separate the two. So yeah, they may, because their team looks a little disjointed. It looks like they're trying to do a couple of different things. So yeah, to your point, I think they may have gotten beat in draft a little bit. And then on top of that, it has to be said for Evil Geniuses where maybe they expected the Senna Tom Kench priority from Cloud9. So they figured out a way to get that from them in the draft. But the thing that stands out to me for the draft overall is the Nocturne Galio Rise pick. That's triple global ultimate, which gives so much control in the mid to late game.
Well, I mean, and you look at some of the stats. Cloud9 didn't get any towers or any like major objectives. No barons, right. No dragons. Like they were just getting beat in macro like it was nobody's business. I think the global ultis were just a huge part of that. Like, who needs teleport when you can just ult halfway across the map and be
with
there
with 3 of your characters
in the fight and hurting whoever, like Galio knockups, Nocturne coming in doing damage right away, Rise like bringing in potentially the Senna and the Xin Zhao. So
yeah, and speaking of Xin Zhao, I think it was Svenskeren that did a lot of work in the early game to set up the stacking dragons. They ended the game with 3, so they were just 1 away from the dragons from Soul. And so I think it really was the pacing of Svenskeren and the way he was moving on the map that enabled the objective control and allowed to stack 5 deep in a lane and just take these advantages. Cloud9, it seemed they were trying to play a slower game, set up for lanes, get Perks in a position to get some assassinations off. But Evil Geniuses were just a little too coordinated.
It's so tough to get assassinations off when the other team can immediately have 3 of their people there. Like, right. It's so hard. It's a rough spot.
Yeah, because you're never going to be able to get the man advantage. Right. They're always going to be able to bring equal amount of players or more.
So it's always trying to find, like, a way to get a pick after the fight has started, because once the fight started, you gotta just survive the onslaught of the globals and then try and get onto the back line. Mm-hmm. Like, that's your only option, and that is a tough spot to be in.
And especially with the, like, to your point, especially with the Nocturne on the battlefield as well, like, that lights out is actually really strong when there's so much communication between players. Like, you really, it's lights out. You really don't know what's going on. You don't know who he targeted. You don't know who he's on. So yeah, a lot of, like, information control that they bring to the table as well with the Nocturne. So yeah, I just love the team comp from Evil Geniuses. I thought they drafted beautifully and then played out the team comp really well. And like I said in the middle analysis, like, shout out to Svenskeren. I think he played the jungle role really well. In just getting his lane, not necessarily like ahead, but getting his team in a position to take those mid-game advantage, or take the early game advantages and just push them into the mid and late game. Because how long was that game? Does it say?
I don't see it, but I'm sure I could figure it out real quick.
Well, you got to figure it was like they ended with like 5K gold, so it was probably only like, or not 5K, like 53,000 gold. So it was probably like a 35-minute game or so.
It was pretty short if I'm remembering correctly.
Gotcha.
It was 25 or just under 26-minute game.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So yeah, pretty quick victory from Evil Geniuses. Impact's a pretty good top laner.
Yeah, he is, and I think Fudge is solid, but that matchup's like, it's tough. That's a tough fight. Like, you can't really save yourself much with your face breaker when you're getting feared and like pushed, like making you run in the opposite direction, and like he definitely didn't have an easy time.
The spell shields, I think, help that matchup significantly for the Nocturne, because everything's so what's the word,
like CC reliant.
Well, yeah, CC reliant, but I was going to say telegraphed. Reacting to Set's moves, like, isn't that tough.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's just, do you have something that can dodge it out? Nocturne does.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, seem pretty free. The one player that I think could have had a better game overall was Blabber. Not that he was doing anything wrong, but he was not as much of use to the squad in the early game as Fen was. I think he was just kind of he really was just getting out jungled a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what it is with Cloud9 right now. They're slumping a little bit. Hopefully they'll be able to figure things out with King in the lineup and everything going forward, but I mean, we'll see. They're definitely hitting a rough spot. I think they are definitely behind on the meta. But that kind of leads us into the second game, day 2. The game that I watched was the C9 game versus Immortals. And that one was weird just because there wasn't really... Immortals didn't really win that as much as I feel like Cloud9 lost it. I felt like Cloud9 had opportunities and were... I mean, the gold finished... Cloud9 was down 7 towers and they were only 3.7k behind. Like, that is not much to be behind in that long of a game and everything. And so I just felt like they had opportunities to win it and would just get picked off randomly and lose objectives like Baron and just be kind of SOL.
What's so interesting with Cloud9 is it seems like individually in the roles, every player is, I'll just say top of the class.
Yeah, they're up there.
Maybe not 1, maybe not 2, but they're top of the class in their role.
Definitely.
And that isn't equating to enough where they're not able to develop these advantages individually enough to really get it to roll over in the mid and late game. And what we also see happen with Cloud9 is their willingness to take like badly set up fights because they've won them previously.
Yeah.
Just on mechanics.
That's
right.
True.
Like, I wish Vulcan and Blabber would spend a little more time in like the pre-objective setup instead of hoping that like Perks is just going to be able to, you know, find the pick and then they can close in. Like, a lot of their setups seem really sloppy, so I think that's a decent contributing factor. But again, Nocturne won against them. There may be something in their communication and in their team play where they're not able to play against that lights out well.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much hitting the nail on the head. Like, they know that they are good enough if they're in the right position, so they just take every fight, which is like benefited them in the past in terms of playing at Worlds against like better teams and things like that. They'll just like take fights, and if they win them, like they're ahead, and so
it makes them look like gods, right?
Exactly.
But then by the same token, if that play fails, it's like, well, if they just warded Pixel Brush. Right? Like, it becomes that, like, easy of an analysis.
Definitely. And Race, for Immortals, had a really, really solid game, too. Race, not sure exactly how to pronounce it.
I think they're saying, like, Reyes on the cast.
Okay. I mean, honestly, really solid game. He kept himself in, like, good positioning during team fights. Helps he was on Tristana, but... like, still nonetheless played pretty solidly. So
yeah, great game from Immortals, man.
Definitely. And so I guess your game for Saturday. For
day 2, I wanted to talk about 100 Thieves versus FlyQuest.
Okay.
Now, FlyQuest, obviously, we're not doing the best here. But what I thought was really interesting with that game, I really enjoyed the Ziggs pick from 100 Thieves. I'm pretty sure we saw Ziggs later in the week, in the mid lane, but I find it fascinating that teams are willing to take the damage hit, just to get that pushing power in their game.
Well, the other thing with it, though, is the fact that you can play farming Senna with it. Like, you can sit there and just have like Ziggs can farm up. He had 235 CS, was pretty much up there with the top farmers in the game, and is able to get all those.
Put that together.
Yeah, get all those ghosties for the Senna, and also be a damage threat. Like, granted, you're really like. You have to play the lane super passively because you are at the risk of getting ganked pretty hard and having no real tankiness, or it's like you're playing with an enchanter support.
Right.
But I think it's kind of an interesting twist on the farming Senna with Tom Kench. Like, instead of like the Tom Kench just being there to be a meatball and just eat up all the CS, you've got the Ziggs there who you're just able to like guarantee that you're getting the CS off of the waves that are coming in. So
that's a great point. Yeah, I'm not even sure I factored that in when I was looking at the recap. Yeah, okay, so that makes a whole lot more sense. Okay, so then you're a double magic damage comp with the double AD bruisers in Xin Zhao and the Nocturne.
Yeah, and Senna's still being able to put out good damage with like
right.
It worked really well against the comp that FlyQuest put together too, because they're very much a run at you comp. Like, yeah, you could get hit by a Sedge dashing over a wall and ulting here or there, but for the most part, like Silas has to run at you and throw his stun out. Like, Kog'Maw's running at you. Lulu is like trying to slow you and run at you. Like, there's nothing like how 100T had the Nocturne and the Rise to like get in there. There's nothing like that from the other side that you necessarily need a tank to like front to back team fight kind of. So.
And with the Silas, it seems that you're stealing ults like reactively. I don't think, while there are good ults to steal, I'm not sure this was the draft to play the Silas into. Because like you were saying, they just didn't have terribly many good engage options aside from like a big Sejuani ult.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they kind of pigeonholed themselves in the draft. But I did like the Cog Lulu. Didn't really work out for them. But he was, Cog was kind of farming like a madman.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
They got close.
They did. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. It's very interesting seeing these different variations of team comps and everything. As the season goes on, the meta changes a little bit. So interesting to see the Sejuani come out. I would have to see the bans because I feel like that is not a S tier pick. But I guess if he's comfortable on it, then that counts for something.
Yeah, or maybe they've been practicing it as like a tier 2, maybe like a pocket pick that he could always go to, where like, hey, we can just win the team fights with this.
Not sure. Could be.
Maybe it was just something they were trying to practice. But yeah, it seemed like 100 Thieves just really, really had their number. Abadage on the rise, just going off 6-2 and 8. I thought he had a great game. Really played the machine gun mage beautifully. And we saw some great ults from Huhi actually too to secure some team fights for them, which was huge. So yeah, overall great games from 100 Thieves.
Yeah, definitely. Also, after bounce back from losing to CLG on Friday. Like, that's it's good to see them come back and like put that together.
Right.
So.
Well, just like anybody else, I'm sure they don't get too upset with best of ones, because at the end of the day,
it's the best of fives that matter. Yep.
Yeah, it's the best of fives that matter.
Make it to the playoffs. So then on Sunday, we both also picked the same game. The boys TSM versus the other boys, Cloud9. So,
Honestly, I would argue that it was Hooney versus Cloud9, and TSM was just there to pick up the scraps.
basically, I mean, that was rough to watch as a Cloud9 fan. He and like Hooney was a monster. Like he put a phenomenal game together. He just couldn't make a bad kick. Like he's out there kick flashing, like diving in on people, surviving for way longer than you'd expect him to. Just getting in there and making plays, and it was fun to watch from that perspective. Like he made that look so clean.
Oh yeah. I think from a layman's perspective, I would argue that the kick that he had on Perks, where Perks was teleporting kind of like right into the middle of the fight when where the ward was on the pixel brush.
Yeah.
He literally like threw the Q right as his body would have been showing up from the teleport. Like I would argue that the game was won with that kick, because from then on, like TSM just had the advantage and they were just able to rinse and repeat. So it was that one in the river, like leading up to red side red buff, where they had that 5-on-5. I honestly think Hooney just single-handedly just like got them such a significant advantage from that point that it was just insurmountable from Cloud9. Because then I'm pretty sure they took that, went to Dragon, and then were able to capitalize with the Baron not like 2 or 3 minutes later.
Yeah.
So the rate at which they accelerated the game after that inset kick from Hooney was textbook, man. And I really don't think the game had anything like. I don't think anything else had anything to do with who won the game other than like Lee Sin on Hooney. Really,
I think
he picked them apart.
I think draft is the only
Sure.
Yeah, only thing, because Cloud9, it's just not a super cohesive draft. It's so pokey, but then you have Xin Zhao like
And the
diving
Nautilus,
in.
like,
I don't know. Cloud9's looked a little weird on draft, but Hooney played so well. The Lulu Cog came out and did what it needed to do. Like TSM definitely had a strong game. So
yeah, I'm not sure. Honestly, the King on Ezreal is not boding well. Like
he doesn't look bad at it, but
he doesn't look bad. But if that's all you're picking for the kid, like there's got to be a champion pool issue there, I'd imagine.
Potentially, yeah. I'd be
interested
to see him on some other stuff. But
well, yeah,
see.
that's what I'm saying. Like, are they drafting for a comfortable king? You know, like, dude, Sven used to be a Kai'Sa player. You know, you can get kills on Kai'Sa.
You can do
Pop off.
Yeah, there are a lot of picks that you can do stuff on, and Ezreal right now does not seem super strong. I mean, it's getting picked a bit more frequently, but it still doesn't seem to really like pop off super hard.
Right. Yeah, I would tend to agree.
So it's like a safe pick to get to later in the game and like do some damage.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, but it's not going to be the thing that, you know, just turns the game on its head.
Definitely,
you know, especially like maybe if it's like set in a poke team comp. Yeah, he's probably going to be the thing that ends up like cleaning up some kills. But yeah, it was it's rough if that's just what you're going to just by default. You know?
Definitely. But yeah, that kind of I guess brings us to the end of the LCS research, unless there were any other like teams or points you wanted to talk about. CLG went 3-0 this week, which brought them up a little bit to be tied for 8th now instead of down in 9th. Nice little bounce back, but they're still, the bottom 3 are just so far out of it right now.
Right. And dude, it is gonna be that. It is gonna be that record carrying over. I think that just like bones these teams that just didn't do well in the spring split.
Yeah, and that was another weird. Freak was like talking about Immortals. I think when they beat C9, they're like taking down the defending LCS champions. It's like, but are they? Like, I still like the casters still don't seem to know that this is like one. Like, why they talk about it like it's still two splits. I don't know what Riot's doing with the LCS, having it be like one long season.
They've addressed it as a split again.
They keep saying it, but like.
Right. Well, not even by words. Like on their on the YouTube like titles and stuff. Like they're saying summer split. I think they realize like it's too tough.
And they're just keeping the rolling records and everything, but like still calling it separate split. It's just weird.
I agree. It makes it very confusing.
Yeah, if you're going to have the records count through the whole year, like, I don't see how someone can be a champion without it, like, resetting.
Sure.
Someone doesn't win the World Series, and then they start with the same record in baseball the next season, and the teams that are, like, 32 games back have to fucking...
Yeah, that would be so crazy. Because like they're never gonna bring that back. Like never. What you think a bottom tier team? Yeah, it's just like an awkward way of doing it.
Yeah, they've really fumbled the way they've handled this, in my opinion. But that's a side note. So, but TSM on top of the standings for the first time in a little bit. So up there, 19-8. Game up on 100 Thieves, 2 games up on C9 and Team Liquid, so looking pretty strong.
Yeah, we have some interesting standings going on. Hopefully as the teams like level up on the way to Worlds, hopefully there's some patch changes and we can see some more competitiveness because from the top of the table to the bottom of the table is a pretty big difference here.
Definitely. I guess we'll see if any of that happens. It's probably not super likely that there'll be huge changes, but kind of is what it is.
Kind of is what it is. I'm just pulling for another big 06 from TSM at Worlds. You love to see that.
TSM.
Yeah.
TSM.
Free SM. Wait, wrong chant.
Just another year of NA not making it out of groups.
No, that's
biggie.
okay. That's okay. This will be our year.
It's always our year.
Just breathe in that copium, dude. Breathe in that copium.
That's one of my favorite memes. Of the
so
memes,
funny.
copium is a pretty good one.
It is pretty good. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps the LCS chat. We're trying a different format here, and I think as the weeks go on, I think this way will work a whole lot better. Just because we do have some, it's like a million best of ones on a weekend. I think only so many of them are going to be terribly interesting.
It's so hard to just keep up with all of it.
Yeah, it's a lot of games. It's a lot of games at a like medium competitiveness level.
Yeah, there's a lot of middle of the pack teams playing each other, and it's like, is that an exciting game or yeah,
dude? And then I also think about it like from this perspective, where like, Friday, Saturday, Sunday rolls around, and I get like the little chime, like, oh, Cloud9's playing FlyQuest soon, and I want to watch live, but between the commercial breaks, the analyst desk, the pre-caster talk, the pick and ban.
It's your entire day.
Dude, I know. It's so brutal. It's so brutal.
I just don't have the time to do that like I used to.
Yeah. I have to, like, I just start, like, right at pick and bans. I see who they banned, who they picked, and I go right to game start. I don't get any analysis. I can't, like, it is way too much time. And then if you're just going to watch the stream, like, with all the ad breaks and everything, like, holy fuck. Yeah, it's a big amount of time.
Yeah. No, it definitely has. I mean, they're playing from like 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday until like 11 or something stupid. Like it's just long days. I have too many things to watch live anymore.
Seriously.
But
Seriously. We do try and, we want to bring the heat for the listeners. So in the pursuit of doing that, we're just going to try and hit a couple of games really well instead of all the games like just, mediocre. Yeah.
So
I think that's going to be a good plan moving forward.
I think so too. I think that we'll get some good LCS coverage and probably be talking about the teams that are going to be potentially going to Worlds. Like we'll be with the other regions. So
that's a great point. Only be really covering the teams that we're going to be talking about overall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
yeah, definitely.
So I guess next up on the docket, my friend, we have got another deck tech. It's been a little while. It's been more than 2 weeks since we did a deck tech because we did not do one on the last pod episode.
Well, the last pod episode was pretty packed, and by the end of it, I just didn't want to bore the listeners here, so I figured we'd save it. But today we're gonna be doing something like a little different. So, like I was saying, Modern Horizons 2 came out, and I did some swaps already, but there were some pretty cool artifact cards that came out in Modern Horizons 2, and there are some pretty bad cards in my Breya deck.
Okay.
So I think what we can do is find some pretty good homes for our new artifact cards.
Nice.
In our Breya Ethereum Shaper deck. So I'm gonna adjust my headset, get all set up, and we can get into figuring out what cards to take out of the deck, and I'll show you what we're putting in.
Sounds good. Yeah, so for the people, Breya is a white, blue, black, red commander. She is a legendary artifact creature, human. And when she enters, she creates 2 artifact creature tokens with flying. Lots of different creatures in the deck currently. A lot of artifacts in the deck as well. So should be a lot of kind of interaction between those. I have not looked through this too much. So Justin will be pretty much ready to roll, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm just gonna zoom down a little bit here. And so, Aaron, you have the list in front of you, right?
I do, yes.
Okay, cool. And can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
All right. So we have Breya here. So Breya, and this is like what a lot of the deck is trying to work with. So Breya says, when she enters the battlefield, make 2 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying, and then pay 2, sack 2 artifacts, and I can choose one. Deal 3 damage to target player and ability, give a target creature -4/-4, or gain 5 life. So what that means for us in the deck build is that we have a lot of modality from just our command zone, which in my opinion I think is like one of the strongest things you can do for commander, is have a lot of options with one card. So we just want to keep in mind what Breya does when we're looking to make some deck swaps. So what are the cards that we want to put into the deck? So I have them broken into two piles here. So first we have the Aethersworn Sphinx. So she's 9 mana, has affinity for artifacts, which will reduce the cost of her. She's a 4/4 flyer, and she has Cascade. So when you cast this, I'll be able to cast another card in my deck for free.
So I think she'll be super powerful. So then we also have Extruder, which mainly I want it for the effect to sacrifice an artifact, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. So this will hopefully give me a way. It'll give me a sacrifice outlet for all my artifacts to hopefully generate some value from that. Which I believe the deck is light on sack outlets currently, so I think that'll be a great addition. And then we have the Brainstone. So it's 1 mana, and then it has 2 tap it, sacrifice it, draw 3 cards, and then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So that is the Brainstorm effect on an artifact, which is pretty cool, and I think that'll give me some pretty good card filtering. So we'll put that there. And then we have Thought Monitor. Now this guy is pretty sweet. So again, he has affinity for artifacts, so he'll cost less for the more artifacts I control. He's a 2/2 flyer. And when he enters the battlefield, I will draw 2 cards. So notice he's 6 and a blue, but if I have 6 artifacts on the battlefield, he costs 1 blue for a 2/2 flyer and drawing 2 cards. So that's a really good rate. And in a deck that's going to have plenty of artifacts, I'm sure I'll have no problem getting to that. So then we also have our Shimmer Mirror. He's a 2/2 flash, and he says you may cast artifact spells as though they had flash. This will allow me to just kind of hold up mana and cast things exactly when I need to, even if they don't say instant or flash on them. He'll give me the ability to cast things when I want to. And then, to be very thematic, we have Breya's Apprentice. When she enters the battlefield, make a 1/1 Thopter. And then she has tap, sack an artifact to choose one, so we can exile the top of our library and play it, or buff a creature +2/+0. So I just think that's very thematic. And plus, she herself is an artifact creature, so anything dealing in artifacts will gain value from that. And then, where the deck namesake comes from, we've got one of the new Thopters, the Chrome Courier. He'll give me some card filtering off the top of my library. And then we've got the Ornithopter of Paradise, 0/2 flyer, tap to add 1 mana of any color. So being that I'm in a 4-color deck, having access to a mana rock that can make any of those colors, I think is going to be super important.
Definitely.
And then we have 5 of the new artifact lands from Modern Horizons 2. The art is actually amazing on these. They have, like, you know, the blue going over into the black, white going over into the red across the bridge. Just very thematic, I think. So we're going to take out some of our basics, some of our other tap lands to make room for these artifacts, because eventually I'll be able to sack these off to Breya's ability to maybe get that last bit of damage in. But for anything that count for artifacts, these are artifacts. So those are all the cards that we're going to try and find a home for here. I have a couple ideas of what's coming out. So overall, we got to find 5 lands to come out and 8 spells, I believe.
Nice.
So we are going to get cracking and find kind of the worst of our Breya deck and hopefully improve it a little bit. So as we're going through, I'm just going to flip through so everyone can kind of see on camera what's on the list, or what's in the deck, and we can kind of talk through choices and here and there. We'll get this done pretty quick. Now, Aaron, do you have any questions as we go through here?
Not really so far.
Okay, so one of the first lands we're going to take out is Mobilized District. So it's the activated ability is going to cost 1 less for legendary creatures and planeswalkers. I don't have really any planeswalkers or too many legendaries, so I think that's 1 land that can come out. So we're going to keep on shuffling through. It's also a colorless land, so in a 4-color deck, like, that's going to be really tough. We have a couple of cycling lands, which are okay. They add some card filtering. So what I think we're going to do is let's get rid of the red desert just because we don't have too many red spells in the deck, and that enters tapped. Let's get rid of a mountain, and then we gotta find some more lands for the other ones. Let's see. Now we're into some spells here. Exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. So I have that in here as a board wipe, and alright, so that's questionable. That could go. Lux Cannon's okay. That gets us a bigger thing. We need removal, so those are fine. These are all artifacts. I think these are all pretty good. Golden Guardian is gonna go. He's not really in our strategy. He's just an artifact, I think, and that's a shame. Because I like that guy, but I don't think we need him.
Just not that guy.
He's not the guy. So these are all okay. Shroom is good. Verity Circle. These all work beautifully for me. I like all of those cards. Okay. We like that. That says draw cards. We like these. That's ramp, removal. That's good. That says draw. That tutors cards. Swampies. Okay, so we're going to get rid of one basic swamp. So we only need to find one more land. And I guess we can take out a basic island. That's what we'll do. There we go. So we have our 5 lands that we're going to take out for our sweet new artifact lands. I like that. We got some 5-color lands there. Mer Retriever, that seems pretty good. That's a board wipe. That ramps us. That says draw cards. The Splicers. Thirst for Knowledge, that goes. Okay, so why do these go? Okay. So Blade Splicer makes an artifact, but it itself is not an artifact. I kind of want most of the spells in my deck to be artifacts.
Okay.
So because she's just a regular creature, I'm booting her. Thirst for Knowledge, so this just says like draw cards on it basically. So I'm going to substitute this for the Thought Monitor to where I get an artifact creature that still says draw cards on it. I think that's just going to be a strict upgrade, and for most of the time it's probably going to cost less than 3 mana.
Yeah.
So there we go. So we have 3 out of our 8 swaps for the spells, and then we have our 5 lands done already. Okay, so let's keep moving. Put those up there. Mer Retriever. Okay, that says draw cards. We want that. Dowsing Dagger. Okay, so on the other side of Dowsing Dagger is a land that taps for 3 mana of any one color, but it is going to be a bit tough to get. So what we could do is just take, for the same mana, just get an Ornithopter of Paradise, where it'll only tap for 1 mana, but it'll significantly reduce the time it takes to get to that mana. The way Dowsing Dagger works, it may be kind of tough. So I actually think Dowsing Dagger is going to come out. That has been cut from many a deck, I have to say. Tower Gargoyle. It's flavorful. It's a 4/4 flyer for 4. I think I just want to be doing better things. Like, all of these other cards have better abilities. Just a 4/4 flyer in Commander doesn't do a whole lot. So Tower Gargoyle, goodbye. Alright, here we go. We got another Splicer. It's just a creature. It makes an artifact, but it itself is not an artifact. So you're going with the Blade Splicer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need to find 2 more cuts out of here. Okay, so Disciple of the Vault. says whenever an artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose a life. So even though he's just a regular creature, even though he's not an artifact creature, he's a thing that's going to be doing damage to my opponents. So he's definitely worth keeping in the deck. Spell Skite, pretty good. Archive is ramp. This makes me more artifacts. Pretty good removal. That's good. That says draw cards. Pretty good. Pretty good. This is questionable, and that's a land, and I want my artifacts to have hexproof. So, what that leaves us with, Aaron, is getting rid of Hidden Stockpile, which is an enchantment, so it can fuck off. It's not an artifact.
And one more, right?
And I think I'm going to get rid of Urza's Ruinous Blast. So the benefit to having this is that the benefit to having this would be like playing in a deck that has a bunch of legendaries, right? So you wipe their board but not yours. But if you look at my list, like, I'm really not in that many legendaries. So I think more often than not, this is just going to exile just all the shit that I'm still trying to use. So yeah, I think that's just more of a liability than it's worth. So I think those are the 8 cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I think those are the 8 cuts. So just to explain my thinking a little more, so we get better ramp. From there, we get better like card filtering. So this effectively just says like sack a creature, scry one. This gives it us on an artifact on a creature. So I think that's good. We're trading out these non-artifact creatures for, let's say, 1, 2 artifact creatures. We're getting a little bit of card draw, a big like top end spell, which I think is great to have. That's going to get me to another spell in my deck. So effectively I'm 2 for 1-ing. I think that Sphinx is going to be really strong. And then we get the sack outlet to trigger like our death effects. So those are kind of the swaps that I'm looking at, and like specifically for the deck. And I think that gives you a little bit of insight into like how I'm thinking when I'm looking at making swaps and upgrades to a deck.
Yeah, I think it seems like across the board you have made like solid upgrades on like each card kind of and just in general to put you more towards your win condition, getting those artifacts, being able to use them with Breya and everything to kind of deal damage, heal yourself, do all those things.
Yeah, hopefully these swaps end up being pretty good. I think they will. Looking forward to, hopefully we'll be able to get some games in here soon.
Definitely. You'll have to let us know if you're able to get any games in with Breya.
Well, to be fair, I think I'll look to play this deck, because I'm actually pretty excited about all these upgrades.
Definitely. That's awesome.
But yeah, I think that was really fun to do actually on the podcast. I know that was a little different than how we've done it before, but if you listen to any of our other episodes, we're always trying to think of new ways to do the thing. So yeah, that was really fun. Aaron, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something.
Definitely. It's interesting to see it going through that way. I definitely like that.
Well, yeah, because a lot of times, like, you just see just 100 cards and, like, oh, they're together for these reasons. But how do you get it? How do you get those 100 cards to that state? And often it's a whole lot of this. So, yeah, always brewing, man.
Definitely. You gotta be.
Gotta be always brewing. But yeah, let me swap my camera and we can hit the outros.
Sounds good.
Now, were there any other things that you wanted to hit?
No, I mean we've got flavor of the week if you want to go through that.
Yes, that's right. I forgot.
But yeah, we can definitely hit the flavor of the week and then head on out.
All right, sweet. Let me get my camera.
There we go.
Nice.
So,
now, yeah.
you had started with the rose thorn seed. I'm still getting things out of my way, so why don't you kick us off for the flavor of the week here? Tell us what you got going on.
Sounds good. So flavor of the week. So far, honestly, for food, I made some really solid chicken Alfredo tonight. I made a homemade sauce. Had added a little bit of spice to it to give it a nice little kick. So spicy cheese. That was pretty solid. I did have some good food last week down at the shore, but that is so far this week my main one.
Nice.
Music for this week. I've been listening to, or honestly, I've been trying to put together a better summertime kind of playlist with some songs that are kind of light, upbeat, like have some good jams for driving around with the windows down, sun out, that kind of thing. So I've been working on that. It's like 2.5 hours long. I want to add some more to it, but I'm having trouble figuring out what exactly I want to put in. And once it's gotten kind of a certain vibe, I'll come across songs on it that I'm like, this doesn't really fit, and take them out. Even though I enjoy the songs, they're just like not quite matching it. So
right, yeah, you're playing DJ, man.
Yeah, so I've been doing that a little bit. And then for visual medium, I started watching this show called Manifest, which is on Netflix. It's when I first watched it, I was a little bit stoned, so it kind of freaked me out a little bit because it's kind of creepy thriller type thing. It's not as like scary watching after that as it was when I was a little bit too high. But it's a pretty solid show. I've enjoyed it so far. So Manifest on Netflix.
Very cool. Okay, and it's like a thriller, you said?
Yeah. The gist is, or like the start of it, basically, these people hop on a flight. They're flying from Jamaica back to the U.S., like vacation people, all sorts of different people, and the plane takes off. They hit some crazy turbulence. They come back to land, and it is 5 years later.
Damn.
So, like, something supernatural.
It was the mist monster on the island, wasn't it?
Something supernatural. Don't bring Lost into this. Love that show. Talking trash. Yeah, something happened while they're in the air. They come back. Everyone's lives are, like, all crazy. People who were like engaged, everyone was assumed dead, so fiancés have moved on. Family members of the people who were on the flight have passed away in that time. Like all brutal. Sorts of different stuff. Their lives are kind of turned upside down. And there's some sinister kind of stuff in the background going on as well. Still haven't gotten to whether I figure out if that plays into how their plane just disappeared for like 5 years or not. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. Pretty solid show.
Wait, so how much do you have to go?
I honestly am not sure.
Word. Okay, gotcha.
I just kind of put it on and didn't even look to see how many episodes there are or anything. I was just like, this looks like semi-interesting, so, like, let's just wing it.
Right. No, that's what's up, though. Sweet. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Definitely. But for your flavors of the week, what do we got?
All right, so I'm really going to, like, change up the formula here, but, you know, they're more like guidelines anyway. So, for music, I'm going to recommend a podcast. So, have you heard the name Lex Friedman?
I have not. I have no idea who he is. I semi-recognize the name.
Okay, so he's an AI scientist who started a podcast recently, and he just has on all these like big brain people, and the I've listened to 4 episodes so far, 3 of which were on crypto, and the 4th one was Andrew Huberman talking about like sleep and neuroplasticity and this and that. So the crypto conversations were fascinating. And I feel like I have so much of a better understanding of it thanks to, you know, his podcast and the breadth at which they were able to talk about some of these topics. So that is my like music recommendation. The Lex Friedman podcast. If you're looking for like episode recommendations specifically to any of the listeners, it was the Andrew Huberman round 2. We had Vitaly Buterin, the creator of Ethereum. I forget the guy's name. Hoskinson, the creator of Cardano, and the Russian guy, the creator of Chainlink. Those were the 4 episodes that I had watched. It was all very fascinating. So to any of my listeners, if you're, or not my, our listeners, to any of our listeners, I'm sorry, Aaron, who would like to learn more about the crypto space and what some of these technologies are doing, that's a great place to start. The Lex Friedman podcast on YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts, it was awesome. Now, for food, while Sarah was in Disney, I got some fried rice from the Chinese place up the road, and I tried crab fried rice for the first time. And that was amazing.
Slaps.
It slapped. Like, I really liked the flavor. And I had never tried it before. Usually I would only go roast pork or vegetable. So yeah, that was awesome. And then for visual medium, I know the last time, I forget what I recommended last time, but this time it's not going to be anything visual. It's actually a recommendation to not do this thing, and this thing is a book. So it's not a recommendation.
Don't read, everyone. Justin is saying don't read.
It's a do not read. Yes, it's a do not read.
Forget how to read.
It's called The Glass House. It is the toughest book I've ever had to read. It's this guy right here. So there was a movie, what's his name, from True Detective, Woody Harrelson and Brie Larson were in it.
Okay.
In the film version. And dude, like, I don't know, I just don't know what the point is. So like, she had like a really tough upbringing. Her dad was like a drunk, but he loved the family like unconditionally. So you have this weird juxtaposition of like, yeah, they grew up poor, but she has this like amazingly rich childhood where she gets to see all the country, like meet these weird characters. Like she like matures in this really fast way where she gets a deep understanding of the world around her at a very young age. And I think the point of the story is to be like, you know, raising kids is like a tough thing. Don't do it if you're not ready, blah, 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 blah. Like, I think it's a lot of it is like a condemnation of her parents, right?
Well, but this, I just looked it up. This says that her parents and younger brother died in a car crash and their parents' best friends took her in. Is that just the movie, or is that the... I just Googled it. That's like
I may not have gotten there yet. Because I haven't finished it.
That's like the first sentence of the description of the movie, at least.
No, I have a feeling that the parents that like I'm reading about are like her actual parents. They may have...
It may be different for the movie.
Yeah, they may have cooked up the narrative a little bit for the movie.
Gotcha, okay. Because I was like, I looked it up and I was like, this seems slightly off from what, like, the little initial synopsis that I just, like, glanced at.
Right.
Because that's the, like, no spoilers, like, start off, like, thing. So.
Weird. Okay. Yeah, so maybe Hollywood did it different, but man, it is, I can't even describe like the feeling that I get when I'm reading it. It just feels like complaining about a good thing. And yeah, it's like kind of shitty and like being poor has got to suck, but I don't get what the point is. I hope I get to like the end of the book and the last chapter is her like summarizing the experience and why she wrote the book and this and that. but like it literally just starts off with her just like telling stories. Like there's no thesis at all. There's no, this is what I'm trying to explore with this memoir. Like it's just this lady's story.
Gotcha.
And I don't know why I'm supposed to care. Why am I reading it, you may ask? It was on a list of a bunch of good books to read. So I figured, hey, it may be a good book. It's not a good book.
Maybe it'll get better. Maybe it gets better.
It's not. Dude, I'm like I'm almost done. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's really it's dumb. It's dumb.
Disappointing.
Yeah. Very. And like I'm an open-minded guy. Jeanette Walls. Like I'm an open-minded guy. Like I can get through things I don't like. I can understand viewpoints that I don't hold. Like I can work with things. This just seems like total just like.
Wait, that's the glass castle?
Oh, what did I say?
You said the glass house.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this is the glass castle.
Completely different then. Okay, never mind. Because a movie popped up from the glass when I said researched the glass house. So
gotcha.
Definitely different.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
this says makes more sense. It's a memoir of her deeply dysfunctional yet vibrant upbringing.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like deeply dysfunctional. Okay, your dad was an alcoholic and your mom just didn't like money that much. But there's something to be, yes. So I'm glad they mentioned that, the deeply rich childhood, but I don't get, there's like this obsession with, okay, here's what I think I'm trying to get at. There's like this obsession with ourself in this country where it's like, yeah, we get it. Your parents were poor. They made some bad choices for you guys as kids. But at the end of the day, how many other people have a shitty upbringing and they just deal with it and then they die? And they don't try and write a book. They don't blah, 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 blah. Like, what gets me is why is it this memoir that I'm reading? Like, why? Who sucked off who to get this book on that list?
Why is this story so much more important than everyone else's?
Then so many, I feel like Nelson Mandela's memoir should be in place of this. Like, his life had to be so much harder than, oh yeah, I got to live in pretty much every state. I had no trouble making friends. It just diluted.
This upset you,
dude. It really does. And I read 2 chapters a day, and every time I put it down, and I'm like, you people suck. It's like I'm hate watching Jersey Shore or something. Like, it's so bad. I literally can't wait to be done with it.
You're almost there.
It was as bad as a Scarlet Letter. That's the same thing.
Just
bro.
gotta
it's
power through.
And yeah, I'm not a bitch. I'm no quitter. I'm not gonna just stop halfway through. But yeah,
I know.
Man, it's brutal.
That's so funny.
It's brutal, man.
Well, love hearing about your take on the flavors of the week.
Next week I'll come with some actual inspiring stuff and not just spew my own vitriol.
That's fine. You gotta get that off your chest that you feel like you're wasting your time with this book.
Yeah, by then I'll be on to something better, and then I'll be like, oh, this is my recommendation.
Definitely.
There you go. Yeah.
But that, I guess, takes us to the end of our show. Remember, you can find us on Twitter at Tall and Short of 1, the number 1. We are on there periodically, especially during race weekends, putting some stuff, retweeting, occasionally commenting. Find us there. You can find us on YouTube, Anchor, anywhere you find podcasts pretty much.
Spotify, Google.
Everything. So, Justin, anything else before we take the people out?
As per usual, just want to tell you guys what to do. Everyone listening, I would just like to say thank you for taking the time out, spending your time with us, me and Aaron, two halves of the Tall and Short of It podcast. Just remember to hit the subscribe. Remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed what you heard this evening. It really helps out a new channel like us. And that has been the Tall and Short of It, everyone. Peace out.
Later, guys.